Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of your Fredcast. My name's Gary, and today here I am once again to talk about something, quite interesting, quite controversial, and something that definitely makes us all curious about, and of course, definitely not only curious but also afraid of, right? Not only curious about. So, yeah, I think it's worth the talk, and as I always say, worth the learning, the practice of new words, the practice of the listening practice, which will, I hope, improve your listening skills. It's going to make you understand more in English, learn new words, be more familiar with the English language if that's not your case. So, this is what I always say. And speaking of things I always say, today is a pretty rainy and chilly Friday. So, go grab your cup of coffee, tea. Not gonna say beer or soda today. Definitely not today, buddy. Or, as I said, whatever it takes for you to relax and join us in this pretty interesting and upbringing, I would say, conversation. So don't be scared. We're just talking possibilities here. We're not here to communicate anything that's going on out there. So this is not a war announcement. If you're afraid of that, don't worry. Just relax. Go grab your drink and come with me. Yeah, and to be even more specific, I would like to say, I have to say that I'm not talking about any specific war. I'm talking about the World War, right? Which would be, in our case, God forbid, the third one. So, in other words, the World War III. Well, I grew up in a very, as I said before here in previous episodes, here on this very podcast, that I grew up on a pretty Christian-based background, okay, household. I wouldn't say too much religious or strict or anything like that, but too much Christian-oriented householding, and inevitably the topic Revelation, aka Apocalypse, was a constant topic in our sessions together with family, dinner, barbecues, you name it. And of course, with the topic apocalypse, end of the world, doomsday, whatever you want to call it, the topic World War III was inevitable, was something like indispensable, I would say. So I grew up listening to it, okay, and from a pretty pessimist perspective, I would say, meaning like people around me just saying that the World War III is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, okay, and it's unnecessary in my opinion to say that when you grow up like that, and you look around and you see that the countries got nuclear weapons, and the power that these weapons have, the power of destruction, I mean, is something that really gets you concerned, right? It's really worrisome, right? Because like a World War III would definitely be something, quite different from the previous two ones, because of this very one factor here, the nuclear weapons, right? Yeah, but there were nuclear weapons in World War II, but the point here is nuclear weapons, if you're not much into history, the nuclear weapons used in World War II were at the end of it, and just to kind of put a stone on it, not gonna get into the specifics here, if that was right or wrong, or necessary or unnecessary. My opinion on this subject is irrelevant, but this is a fact. This is a historical fact. So there were nuclear weapons used on World War II, but they weren't used like They were used to the end of it, not in the middle of it, and let alone at the beginning of it. Okay, so this is a completely different situation, right? So one can effectively say we can understand that there was no nuclear weapons in the other two wars, right? Because a World War III would definitely mean, I believe, everyone seems to believe the same, a war between nations with nuclear weapons. In other words, USA, China, Russia, Iran, Israel, these guys. All right. So this is the scenario. Okay. Well, as I said, I grew up listening to stories and opinions related to the end of the world, and they were all, as I said before, they were all connected to nuclear weapons, nukes, as some people say. Okay, N-U-K-E. Yeah, when you see the word nuke, it's short and popular for nuclear weapons, right? So yeah, okay. So this is my profile with a topic. I'm not an expert, in security, in nuclear energy or bombs or army stuff. No, that's not the case here. Okay, as I said, and I will repeat, I'm only here to get you listening to some English talk, and I would really be happy if I could do this the coolest way possible, the most entertaining way possible. So that's my background with the topic. All right. I really believe that you have had a similar one growing up in Brazil, right? If you're my age, 30, 35, yeah, you probably grew up listening to the same things. And of course, until the present day, to this very moment, there are lots of people out there on YouTube talking about politics, geopolitics, war, etc., saying that this is about to happen, right? And why is this? Why are these people today having more voice than ever before? Because they were saying that before, years ago. There were people saying that years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So what is the difference today? Well, you probably already know that answer is, of course, the fact that Ukraine has been invaded by Russia in the past 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And the conflicts between Israel and some of the Arab countries, or Israel and Palestine, that's been intensified in the past years, and the, said by the experts, inevitable and upcoming invasion of Taiwan by China. Okay, so these are all World War III material, basically, right? And I just came from the last possible to become a World War III cause, or World War III material, as I said, that is Russia and Ukraine situation, to the most likely one, that is the invasion of China, by the invasion of Taiwan by China, right? And of course, in the middle of it, the Israel-Palestine situation, right? Well, I'm not entirely sure if the experts say like 100% that if China gets to invade Taiwan, United States will come through it and defend Taiwan and consequently declare war against China. I'm not entirely sure, but I am entirely sure that the experts say that they believe that China will, and China has announced these intentions to an upcoming future before. Yeah, that's public information, okay? But this truth of the matter is, well, I said before that when we talk about World War III, we're talking about nuclear weapons. But there is one thing, I don't know if you've ever heard of this term. I would really suggest you to write it down because it's something nice to know. And it's often mentioned in this type of conversation. So, and it's an acronym, okay? It's a few letters together, I forgot how to say that in Portuguese. I think in acronym we have the word acrônimo. But anyways, when you have letters representing short words, shorting the words off, basically. Anyways, so there is this MAD acronym, okay, that stands for Mutual Assured Destruction. Yeah, so it means basically that we're in a situation concerning nuclear weapons, nuclear power, that if we get into a war between two nuclear powers, nuclear countries that develop this technology, such as China and USA, for example, we would have the MAD concept. And curious observation, the word MAD is exactly what you think it means. That is crazy, right? But of course, here is an acronym, MAD, right? Mutual Assured Destruction. So it means that no matter what, a war between two nuclear potencies would cause the destruction of everybody. Everyone would lose that. We would lose at it somehow. Okay, and not only the two countries, the 2 or 3, 4 countries involved in it, but also the whole world. All right, the whole world, the whole planet. So we have to take into consideration that if we know that, we mere mortals know that, what about the guys out there, who will push the buttons or influence these buttons to be pushed? When I say these buttons to be pushed, I mean the nuclear weapons buttons, basically. All right. So I think that I really believe, and I like to believe that these guys do the math at some point, saying, hey, maybe a nuclear weapons war wouldn't be interesting to anyone, myself included, ourselves included, right? Let us just step down, okay? Why am I saying that? Because I am opening the possibility here to consider that, well, we may have a World War III without nuclear weapons, or without it being used directly in the war zones, such as what's going on in Ukraine and Russia right now, okay? Okay, Russia has got nuclear weapons, Ukraine does not have nuclear weapons, but why doesn't Russia use it? Of course, there are lots of answers to that question, but my main point here, my unique point here, is to say that we can have wars without nuclear weapons. And don't get me wrong, I must add to that, thank goodness we can, Of course, it will be almost equally terrible, almost equally terrible situation, but it will be way less terrible than with nuclear weapons, with nukes. That's my point. So this is the main reason that leads me to believe that we may never, and I really 1,000 times really hope that I'm right on it. Okay, I can be wrong at anything else I say here, but I'd like to be right about this one. If there's anyone listening to me in the future, 1,000 years from now, you guys will tell me, or will tell your friend that I was right or wrong, whatever. But I really hope I'm right on it right now. So because if I am able, again, a simpleton here, at least compared to these guys, top powerful country leaders and top rich people, if I can do that, if I can come to this conclusion, so can they, right? Okay, there is like one line of thoughts that goes like, okay, these guys have got bunkers. All right, but the point here is like, if we're talking about a nuclear winter, and just parenthesis here so I can explain that, nuclear winter is that the period after the nuclear weapons, because the theory says that in a nuclear war, in big proportions, we could have like a century or a few centuries of totally gray because of the amount of dust that would, from the explosions, get to the atmosphere. kind of creating a greenhouse effect, basically, but like in much bigger proportions. And we would have like the sun rays blocked, okay, the sunlight kind of blocked, and consequently would have winter, and lots and lots and lots of unpleasant situations. I suggest you read a little more about it if you're curious. If you don't get the point here, but my intention here is not be specific in other points other than the possibility of a nuclear weapon, or basically a possibility of a World War III, right? But at this specific point, I'm talking about possibility of nuclear weapons being used effectively as weapons, not only as persuasion mechanisms, okay? Which is the top today, and I really hope it keeps this way forever until the end of these pieces of shit that are nuclear weapons, in my opinion. They're used as persuasion mechanisms, meaning that the countries have them and say, hey, we got them, what do you guys, it's like as a power demonstration, basically speaking. Okay, so my cutting to the chase here, I don't really believe we're gonna have a World War III used, a nuclear war, World War III, but we could have a non-nuclear World War III. All right, that's my main point here about it. And what will be the possible scenarios? Okay, again, I'm not an expert, but I kind of like listening to them on this specific subject, and I'm gonna say what I've understood hearing from them on this specific purpose. Well, it's no news to anyone that China and Russia, because they're neighboring countries, mostly neighboring, but they're neighbor countries anywhere. So yeah, it's no news to anyone that there's a kind of alliance between them, and they wouldn't be on opposite sides in a big proportions war, right? In a world war. So there will be certainly an alliance there between China and Russia. And some of the, I don't want to be unfair here, but let's put it, communist related countries, communist and Arab related countries would possibly join China and Russia, right? When I say like Muslims, like countries, right? Most of the Arab countries would join China, I believe. Again, this is my opinion. I'm not entirely sure if the experts say exactly that this is going to happen, apart from the Russia-China alliance. That's clear, right? So the countries that, let me put it in a different way. The countries that are not too much of Democrats, meaning democracy doesn't work properly in there. Does democracy work properly in China? I don't think so. Does democracy work properly in Russia? Well, I would say a little better than China, but still, the suppression coming from the Kremlin, still too big, in my opinion, So let me put it as a weak democracy, right? Not to say a non-democracy. So in the Arab countries, where are democracies there? Most of them are theocracies, So no democracy, or at least weak democracies. Not to mention the ones that are blatant dictatorships. Okay. So all these countries would tend to be together, and that includes Venezuela right here. But that could be, we could open a discussion about it if they would be crazy enough, because they would basically be alone here, or maybe Venezuela and Cuba would be together, so basically alone, close to Brazil, close to the United States, which would be the other alliance, right? What are the automatic alliances here? UK, France, most of, not to say all of the Western Europe, Spain, Portugal, Germany, right? They will be all together, most likely. And of course, United States, as I said, and Brazil would probably join this side, right? Which also would bring certainly Japan, Australia, some of the democracies, the African democracies would join us. Let me say us, because we're Brazilians in this hypothetical scenario that I, from the bottom of my heart, hope never comes to pass, never comes to happen. But that will be basically the scenario, okay? Democracies versus non-democracies, all right? Or solid democracies versus non-democracies / weak democracies / dictatorships, right? Not to mention North Korea would be on the China side, and South Korea on USA side, all right? It's really, really hard to say who would win. This is, coming to think of it, another reason that helps us believe that hopefully we're never gonna have a World War III at all, okay? Especially a nuclear weapon, a nuclear World War III, right? But that would be the scenario. As I said, I don't really see that happening. So answering the question of today's title, what are the odds? In my opinion, the odds are low, okay? They were really low years ago, but today they're still low, okay? Way higher than 10 years ago, but still really low, right? Again, I really hope I'm right on it, and that's what I would like to know. So I'm registering this talk, this conversation, these words, so in the future we can listen to it. And again, hopefully I will be able to tell, yeah, I was right. Thank God. So that's all for today's episodes, ladies and gents. Thank you so very much for your lovely and blissful company. I see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.